Our climate is pushing the water cycle to its extremes. We are seeing intense, destructive downpours, followed immediately by deep, sudden dry spells. To secure fresh water for millions of people along the coast, we usually build massive facilities. Desalination plants and large-scale treatment centers offer a compelling promise: guaranteed fresh water, engineered to serve entire regions. But that level of engineering requires millions in upfront capital, and it relies completely on a continuous, uninterrupted supply of energy. If the power stops, the water stops. And when extreme weather hits, the grid goes down. A Category 4 hurricane can snap utility poles and sever power lines in minutes, shutting off the municipal water supply instantly. Large engineering projects provide scale, but they don't provide actual resilience. When your survival relies entirely on a single point of failure, you remain highly vulnerable to disaster. The alternative is returning to decentralized traditional methods. Practices like harvesting rainwater from rooftops or reviving ancient mountain canals allow communities to bypass grid dependency. This matrix compares these two distinct philosophies of water management across three metrics: how they are powered, what they cost to build, and how they fail. Centralized infrastructure requires heavy capital, often hundreds of millions of dollars, and massive, constant energy inputs from the power grid. Decentralized ancestral methods run on very low upfront capital and zero grid energy. Instead of one massive vulnerability, the points of failure are distributed across thousands of individual systems. Here is the trade-off you have to make. You give up the passive convenience of a municipal utility, and you take on the active necessity of local maintenance to guarantee your own security. This chart weighs the cost of a system against its ability to survive an infrastructure collapse. Look at desalination plants and large dams. They plot clearly in the high-cost, low-resilience quadrant because of their massive financial and environmental footprints. They produce vast amounts of fresh water that serve dense urban centers, but only as long as the complex supply chains supporting them remain entirely intact. When those municipal pipes fail, or simply never reach the outskirts of a city, the burden falls on vulnerable communities. Residents are forced to pay a premium to private vendors, hauling water by the truckload just to fill a single home tank. Relying on a single, massive utility locks communities into high recurring bills, and when disaster strikes, it leaves households with almost no options of their own. Now let's look at individual household resilience. On many Caribbean islands, residents use a centuries-old practice of rainwater harvesting, catching rain straight from the roof and piping it into a storage cistern. The barrier to entry here is very low. A household can buy a plastic tank or build a simple system using local materials for an initial investment of anywhere from $125 to $1,000. Modern variations use a simple but effective first flush diverter. As rain washes over the roof, it carries bird droppings, dust, and leaves into the pipe. This mechanism catches that first dirty flow, dropping it into a lower chamber and allowing only the clean water to enter the main storage tank. You don't need complex engineering to build this. Homeowners can glue PVC joints, attach filters, and manage the plumbing themselves. Bringing our chart back, you can see household rainwater harvesting plots firmly in the low-cost, high-resilience quadrant. It secures an immediate point-of-need water supply. You just have to accept the trade-off. You are responsible for the manual cleaning, and your supply is limited to the volume of your tank during dry periods. This decentralized approach scales up to the community level too. High in the Peruvian Andes, Yucal populations are reviving pre-Inca infrastructure known as Amunas. The mechanism is straightforward. Communities restore ancient stone canals to capture heavy wet season runoff. Instead of piping it to a tank, the water infiltrates the soil, moving slowly underground for over 60 days before naturally discharging into rivers during the dry season. Recharging local aquifers this way costs roughly 1/3 of what it takes to build a modern concrete dam. It is a highly efficient, nature-based process, but it demands organized physical labor. Instead of hiring heavy machinery, local community members work the soil, manually digging and maintaining these deep trenches. The engine of this infrastructure is social cohesion. It requires active community committees and dedicated local leadership to function year after year. Looking at the chart again, Amunas plot right alongside rainwater harvesting in the low-cost, high-resilience zone. Community-managed ecological processes offer cost-effective, long-term resilience, but you have to invest deeply in your local social network, rather than relying on the instant turn of a tap. This flowchart maps your water security. What is your primary threat? In high-density urban areas, centralized tech is necessary, but requires a local emergency backup. In coastal or mountainous areas facing grid failure, decentralized ancestral methods are your best defense. Modern resilience comes from combining these approaches, building decentralized redundancy to protect your household when systems fail. When communities rely exclusively on external utility companies, they accept severe financial and energy vulnerabilities. Taking ownership of your infrastructure changes that. It creates green jobs, lowers household utility bills, and keeps local capital inside the community. This transition changes how you view water. It stops being a commodity you simply buy and starts being a resource you actively steward. When the grid fails and disasters strike, ultimate survival doesn't depend on multi-million-dollar plants miles away. It depends on the owner-operated, locally maintained networks right in your own backyard.